Hello, everyone. I am going to wait for Theo to hop on and invite her in. I hope you guys are as excited as I am about this. Here we go.
Let's see if it works. Oh, it did.
It
You know,
worked.
you just never know with Facebook. And so it's always like, is it going to work? Is it not?
I
All the
know.
things.
Welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your greatness with my group and with me. You can dive in wherever you'd like.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Liz, for inviting me. I love speaking in other groups, and every time I get an invitation, it just gives me that opportunity to respond, which is, hey, I'm a generator and I'm supposed to respond. So it works out perfect.
Love it.
I'll just do a quick intro. And then what I thought I'd do, do you have some specific questions, or you want me to just kind of go through some generalities, or I don't know if anyone posted questions prior to.
We've got
Uh,
one question, and I've got a question.
okay.
So we can just sort of dive in and then we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Okay, sounds perfect. So, hello everyone. My name is Theo Giannioses, and I'm a business and marketing alchemist. And I love working with women who are wanting to do something different in their life, wanting to create impact, wanting to create a change, and doing that through an online space, whether it be providing a service, coaching, selling a product, but really allowing women to embody their essence, if you will. Um, and so just a really quick little background. I was in corporate for over 20 years doing marketing, finance, business building, development, all the things. So that is kind of my background. And that's why I love marketing. It just kind of comes to me. And I started creating my online space when I was still in corporate. So I've done that kind of toggle. I understand the challenges, I understand the bonuses, and I left corporate in March of 2019. So actually 3 years ago this month.
Cool.
Hey, um, and it's been an amazing journey ever since. And I say that because despite all of my business background, I really, really felt that creating an online space in business was going to be a piece of cake. And it really is it's very different in the online space. And what really is the difference is that it's you and it's me and we're here, and there's no corporation to hide behind. And so what it brings up for women is all of the self-worth, all of those limiting beliefs, all of the, oh my gosh, because the online space plays with our ego mind. And it's, to me, it's been the most adventurous journey, and a way to really shorten the timelines into my own personal growth and self-awareness. And I
It
love
forces you to, right?
incorporating, yeah, I love incorporating human design into this. So when I left corporate, I had already started looking at human design, and it really just intrigued me. And ever since then, I've taken trainings and done a lot of workshops, worked with a lot of clients, both privately and in my masterminds. And I just see this as this almost hidden map, if you will, um, into ourselves. And so I see it as such a valuable tool for self-awareness and self-leadership, but also in the online business space, just making some shifts. So that's a quick intro.
Thank you.
What is your question? Or
Well, I have questions about, well, first let me say, when I first heard about human design, I had someone do my chart for me about 3 years ago, and they did my daughter's. And at the time, I remember thinking, like, this is really cool stuff. But I think the way that it was given to me was such an overload. Like, she just got on the phone and talked for 90 minutes.
oh,
And I
geez.
took some notes, but it wasn't, it was too much to digest.
Yeah.
And then I was reintroduced a few months ago, and like actually spent some time within an app and like reading some things and understanding. And I just felt like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. But of course, there's, you could probably get a PhD in this. There's just mountains of information. So my first question is, could you speak to what a defined center is versus a undefined, right? So these are when you look at your profile, do you call it? Is that what you call it? In
Yeah.
chart, and it's like a colored in triangle or maybe square versus not. Could you speak to that, please?
Sure. So I think what I first of all, I absolutely agree with you on the overwhelm. Human design is it can be very overwhelming. And one of the things I do with my clients when I do readings is, first of all, we do it on Zoom. So there's much more of a connection. It's recorded, you have it to reference. And then also I provide like a 22-page written report, because it's very hard for this type of information to be conveyed when you're just trying to take notes and listen. And it really isn't about I always like to reference understanding your natal chart in astrology. You can have someone take a look at your chart and give you a reading, but there's so much more content. And it's the very same thing. It's like there is the basics, but there's no such thing as knowing human design. It continually evolves and changes because we're human and we continue to evolve and change. So what I'll do, just for the sake of making sure that your answer makes sense to those, is the real core foundation of human design. There's 5 energy types. So I'll just do a little bit of terminology. 5 energy types. There's manifestors, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. And basically, that information comes from your exact birth date, birth time, and birth location. So this is information that is very unique to you. And it's designed to take in the information of the astrology chart, where the planets were. And there's conscious and unconscious. So if you're looking at the chart, on the right side, the black is your conscious, and on the left side is the red, which is unconscious, which is 3 months prior to your birth date. So, and all of that comes into play as you dive deeper and deeper. But since everyone's looking at the chart going, what's this? What's this? So the 9, there's also what you'll see, and this is like everything that you see people post. I'm a generator 4/6 sacral, which I am. So the 4/6 is really just the profile line. And then that is another layer of content, a layer of information for you. The authority is the sacral emotional, now it's escaping me. I always go back to sacral, emotional, egocentral, solar plexus. So there's different authorities, and then there's your strategy. And so this is the common terminology that everybody really starts with. And in all honesty, if you just really looked at those aspects and really started looking at it and changing and shifting some of the way that you show up, it will have an impact on you. And then you go deeper and deeper. The numbers are called gates. And then the colored in part. So you talked about the undefined and defined. It's not only those 9 energy centers, which are the different shapes. It's also the channels and the gates. So when we talk about the energy centers, first of all, if you're looking at your chart going, but mine's pink and this one's yellow, and the color does not have any, it just makes it look pretty. It's it's whether or not it's colored in versus white. And basically, to get to your question, the difference simply means that if your energy center is defined, that is characteristics of that energy center that come very naturally to you. Those are your power centers. Those are, you don't even have to consciously think about it, so to speak. So for example, on my chart, I have two defined centers, the root and the sacral. So having that groundedness, having that ability to be able to know what it is that I'm here to do and serve, and as a passion, so to speak, and having the energy, which is the sacral, is what really defines me as a generator. So now the fact that things are not colored in on your chart doesn't mean you don't have those aspects or it doesn't mean you're missing something. For example, like I said, in my chart, I only have 2 defined and I have 7 undefined.
Okay.
So all that basically means when any of your undefined energy centers is that you are going to, the aspect of that energy center is going to be more influenced by external. So it's always an understanding that, for example, an undefined spleen, if you're finding yourself afraid or fearful or not sure what to do next, it really is taking that time to say, is this my fear because I have an open, undefined center, or is it someone else's that I'm absorbing? And what I'd like to suggest, just as a analogy for undefined centers, is that it's a sponge. So you're absorbing and taking in. I have an open head and an open ajna. And where I learned that this came into play, wish I knew this years ago, but is things like taking in information. There will be a point where it's like, okay, I'm done. I know more. It could be also with my undefined G center, identity center. It's the ability to walk into a room and energetically I can sense whether or not I need to be there. Or my head will, after a while, if I'm in like a networking event, or when I used to do a lot of corporate presentations and there'd be 300 and 400 people, there would be a time where I literally would feel overwhelmed. It's like too much. But at the time, I didn't have the tools to understand that. And this is where human design, when you just know that, and it's like, oh, you know what? I'm done here. We got to leave this party.
You can take better care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a real high level description of the difference between the undefined and the defined. Now that same concept or theory applies to the channels. So the channels are, a channel is where you have a direct connection from the gate to a gate. So it'll look like a full connection. A gate, or a hanging gate as it's called, is when it's only partially filled in. So it only goes halfway. And again, the undefined areas just simply mean those don't come to you innately. You may have to do a little more work. You may want to be aware of your environment. And are you taking in other people's thoughts, ideas, strategies, nuances, versus is it something that is really what your values are, if you will. And then when you look at the chart again, because I know people are doing that, it's like you're going to see that those channels and gates are either black, red, or swirled, kind of black and red together.
Oh, okay.
So again, all that really means that will actually revert back to those black lines I talked about, the conscious and the unconscious. And it just simply means that that gate is, if it's black, again, it's kind of a power center. It's kind of something that comes to you really naturally once you really recognize the true essence and value of that gate and channel. Red just simply means it's unconscious. And if it's swirled, it just means both.
Okay. That
Um,
was our one question was, what does
oh,
it mean when they're intertwined? And I had no idea about that. So it basically means that there is a blending of both there.
yes. And it's not, you know, I always like to suggest on human design, this is all interpretive. In other words, you take from it what works best for you. Yes, there's science. Yes, there's, definitions available, but don't take the words literally.
Okay.
Because I think when I first started, years ago, it was like I felt like I was missing things because I had so many white centers, white energy centers. So, it's kind of where I was at in my journey and feeling like, oh, I'm missing out on something. And it really isn't that you're missing anything. All of the gates, all of the energy centers are a part of you. It's just what is more prominent and therefore you want to focus on versus what isn't prominent. And if it is something that is in an imbalance, then it's something that you want to bring into your life. You want to understand a little bit more.
Okay.
Now, I'll just say one more thing and then we can go. But so ultimately, if you really look at charts and energy centers, at like attracts like from the standpoint of harmonious, like when you look, like you said that you had your daughter's chart done, for example, the places that really align for both of you is when she's defined and you're undefined and you come together, because that actually balances out the energies. It balances out, that particular center. But taking it in that all the way out to that level, to me, is not as important as just focusing on yourself. But that truly is, you're attracted to someone that, might have a defined head, let's say, who's very knowledgeable, very, very integrated in knowledge. And if you have an open head, that's a perfect match because you want that connection.
Okay.
As opposed to having two defined heads try to logic each other out.
Okay. So I know I have an open, I'm going to call it crown, even though they're not aligned with the typical 7 chakras. I have an open crown and a defined ajna and throat. And I think I have 5 or 6 defined areas. And so I understand that to mean like I'm really good at organizing and planning because of the defined ajna, and it comes naturally to me. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is on that level. And then if we were to dive deeper and really look at some of the gates, it would be organized in what manner, or how can you show up organized. It's not so much organizing, a time, your calendar or a system. It's there might be another aspect that is really contained in your chart. So for example, a defined throat, it just absolutely positively means that you're here to speak. You're here to speak, you're here to lead. But I have an undefined throat. So it just simply means that where it might be 100% supernatural for you, for me, given other things that are going on, it might just take a little bit more effort. Now, I don't find, and it's also, our communication center. So the chakra system doesn't align to the human design system but it's close. So on your human design chart, the heart is actually off to the right as you're looking at the chart. And the chakra system doesn't include the spleen. So those are usually the little differences. But for the most part, it's the same kind of concept. Everything's connected. And so doing what you're doing in your business, for example, is very much aligned with, yes, the defined ajna and the defined throat. And then if you really wanted to know how could I really, really fine tune that, then we look at gates and channels.
Okay. Cool. It's so complex, so interesting.
It, well, you know, I actually, having the open head that I do, I love the fact that it's not a take this course and you've got it. It
Yeah.
very much is, there's layers upon layers upon layers. Um, and there's application. This is the key piece with human design. It's not, oh, I know I'm a generator, so that means XYZ. It's not meant to limit you. And it's not meant to put you in a box, so to speak.
Right.
It really is meant to just give you some framework to work in and to understand also that everybody else is taking in information differently. Everybody else is responding differently. Now, I know we know that and we say that, oh, everybody's unique. But when you really understand your audience or you understand your partner or your kids, it really, just little shifts really are so impactful, even if you don't look at the chart on a deeper basis.
Mhm. So tell us, what's the most important thing? Like if you're just looking at your chart, what would be the most important piece to digest as a
So
beginner?
what I always suggest is know your energy type. So again, that's one of the 5 types. The second and third most important piece, which I feel go hand in hand, is the strategy and the authority. So the strategy is, if you're a manifester, your strategy is to inform. And I'll come back to each of these. Manifesting generator and generator, your strategy is to respond. A projector is to be invited. And a reflector is to reflect, believe it or not. Now reflectors, and you know, I know what the information is, but I can't say I've verified it scientifically, but reflectors, there's only 1% of the population that is a reflector. And the unique thing about reflectors is that they're here to mirror, and they need to wait to respond 28 days. So, you
You have a
know,
lot of
for those of you,
patience.
well, yeah, for those of you that have a child that just can't make up their decisions, or you have a friend that can never, ever, you know, or they're just kind of always out, you know, they have no defined energy centers. So that's what makes them a reflector. So they're literally that flowy kind of person that you know, I think we all know someone like that. And but when they can embrace that and see that as a power center, then but that's only 1% of the population. So the manifesting generators and generators combined make up about 70% of the population. Um, and then the rest is manifestors and projectors. So what I always like to insert here, just for impact, if you think about it, and if you're a manifestor or you're a projector and you've maybe never been happy with your career, never been satisfied, always tired, you know, feeling like you can't keep up, all these different things, I'm going to apologize on behalf of the generators and manifesting generators, but because there's been such a larger population, all the systems are built from manifesting generators and generators who have the energy, who want to get things done. And you've had to try to be in a world that just doesn't align with you energetically. So if you think about that, especially for manifestors and projectors, it gives you that space to go, oh, thank God. I don't have to keep up with everybody. So going back to the strategy and the authority, it's really, the strategy is like for manifestors, it's to inform. So in an online space or working with clients, or you're here to, you've got all the ideas, but you're not here to actually do the work. You're here to be that visionary, if you will. And I just do with my you're the trailblazer. You know, that's a really good kind of mental picture. If you're a manifester, you're a trailblazer. You're here to just really kick ass and do things differently. The challenge is you're not to actually be doing the work. And especially when you're starting out in business, it's like, well, I can't afford to hire someone. But in reality, if you did, it would help your energy levels, because you're not designed to go, 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 go. And then for manifesting generators and generators, we basically get lumped together because our authority and our strategy is the same. Well, the authority can either be emotional or sacral, but our strategy is to respond. And basically what that means is we're not designed to go out and initiate. We kind of wait to see what the needs are. Even though we get those ideas and we can multitask, we can do all the things, we've got the energy, we can get a project done. We aren't like to be the innovator. That is for the manifester. However, if a manifester were to put something on a social media post that says, I'm looking for someone to help me do XYZ, a generator or a manifesting generator can respond. So it's a real subtle difference on some of your messaging and marketing, as to, are you out there, those models of sending direct messages to people and, cold calling and all of that kind of cold messaging. It doesn't work it doesn't work in this example for manifesting generators or generators. I don't think it works at all, but anyways. in this example.
For someone who is not necessarily in business for themselves, but is looking more towards, how do I get to know myself? How do I be more authentically me? How do I grow? How do I expand? The way I interpret what you're saying is that there's all these options. And for a manifesting generator or generator, there's all these options out there. There's coaches, there's healers, there's training programs that really what they're looking for is not to create that themselves, but to respond to what comes through from the universe that gets them excited.
Yes, and that's a good way to look at it. It's not to say that we aren't capable of creating programs. I mean, we do create programs, but we're not just sitting like in an idea tank coming up with things. We're responding to something that we need. If we see, for example, in this group that you have, for example, all of a sudden people are asking about social media, or how do I grow a business, or how do I start, or how do I, work with this client? And you see kind of that little bit of a trend where, gosh, 5 people this week asked, how do I work with clients in a different manner? Then you, as the manifesting generator, can decide, wow, is that something that I want to share? Is that something I want to create? And for sacral authorities, it's very important to listen to that sacral internal gut feeling, if you will, because so often what has happened to us in the past, and this is where if someone is looking to, correct and enhance their life, if you're a manifesting generator and generator, I can guarantee you there's been times in your life you said yes to things that you did not want to do. And I mean, it just comes with the territory. It could be yes to making dinner when you really wanted to go out to dinner. I mean, it could be on that level, or it could be in the corporate level. And so it's recognizing that, is this a hell yes, or is this a hell no? And because what happens is we don't want to get into our not self theme. And that's something else that's on everybody's chart. For manifesting generators and generators, that's frustration. And for me, when I started learning this, it was like, well, yeah, it's like, of course I'm frustrated because I didn't want to be doing this in the first place. And I always, in my corporate world, got stuck doing things that while everyone was out having fun on the weekends, I was working on the weekends. It was like, so recognizing your not self theme is very important too, because it comes back to, wait, do I really want to do this? The side effect for manifesting generators and generators specifically is that when we say yes, we absolutely positively will finish whatever it is, even though we're frustrated. Which is why people come to us. You know, for manifestors, the not self theme is anger. And lots of times they can get into a concept of wanting to do things for people and doing, you know, again, that doing piece. And then for them, it's always sort of this anger and resentment that, well, why isn't anyone doing anything for me? And for projectors, the not self theme is bitterness or resentment. And that again is when they've been doing when they're not designed to be the doing. And recognizing, gosh, I'm feeling resentful again. I've been doing this for this and taking my kids here and doing this for my partner and doing all the things, and no one's doing anything for me. That's an indicator that you're just out of alignment, because projectors aren't really designed to be initiating. They're designed, projectors, the little theme would be they're the guides. And really projectors are actual leaders, more so than even manifesting generators and generators. But projectors, I like to say, are the lighthouse. They share their expertise. They put information out there and wait for others to recognize their expertise. It's hard in business because, you know, we're used to, well, if I do this, I want this and this and this. Again, that's that generator world that we've created and lived in. So it gets really interesting when you really kind of look at all these little bits and pieces. But those are the key things: is your energy or your type, and then the strategy and authority, and then being aware of your not self theme. So those are real good basics.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have another question. I work with a lot of people around harnessing their manifestation abilities, and I have a program on this and have a retreat in a month that is Manifest and Expand. And I would really love to better understand the specific versus non-specific manifestation in your design. And then there's another piece that I came across in a deep dive I was doing one day when someone was talking about it, but I don't know what it's called. So I hope that you can read my mind and know what that is. But some other piece around like the how to manifest that is best aligned with your, it has something to do with the arrow of the direction in which the arrow is faced on the bottom. If I'm looking at a chart, the bottom left.
Bottom left. Okay. So the bottom right is the non-specific and specific. And really what it comes down to and especially with you working in manifesting. And again, this is something that I like to think our mind likes to fixate on. But for me personally, it was one of those things. It was like, oh, I'm going to shift this because I'm not a specific, I'm a non-specific. And as soon as I shifted it, things felt a lot better. So the difference is a specific manifester, and this is where the arrow is pointing into the head or into the diagram, is designed when it comes to manifesting to be very specific. I really desire a house on this street. I want it to be yellow. I want it to have French doors in the back. I want it to have a pool. I wanted to have a 2-car garage with a white picket fence. And this and that's sort of the process, very, very specific. A non-specific manifester is designed more to say, I really desire to move to a new location. I'd like it to be in this city, and I want it to be a house or an apartment. Or so again, taking away the specificities. Some of the manifesting techniques that were taught years ago were very much focused on the specifics.
Right.
And I didn't find them working for me at the time. And in hindsight, after I started learning about human design, I could see why. It just wasn't my style. It
Yeah.
wasn't inherent for me. And ultimately, manifesting is really more about the feeling and the vision, and it's not the specifics. Because what I like to share on the specific manifesting is that it's not saying I want $5,000 in my bank account by Friday at 5 p.m. Well, there's a lot of fives there. Because those types of specific manifestations are really, it like falls on deaf ears. The universe doesn't understand the numbers. It doesn't understand dates. It doesn't understand time and days. So that's not what specific and non-specific means. It's more of the details. It's more of the general versus more defined, is what that comes in. Let's see, what does Vicky say? How can I tell which you are? Sorry, I missed that, trying to find it on the map. Are you asking about the arrows, Vicky? It's the arrows. You'll see that there's 2 black arrows right beside the head and 2 red arrows. So this is the bottom one on the right, facing out.
And I think when you even do, if you use the app, my Human Design, my Human Design app, it will tell you when you enter your information, it'll tell you whether you're specific or non-specific. And you can do that without, there's no cost to it. It doesn't give you any information on what it means, but it will give you just that little piece.
Well, and that's the same thing with doing it online too, where you can see it in a bigger. You can go to mybodygraph.com, and it doesn't cost anything. There's several out there. Mybodygraph.com is more accurate, and you just need your birth time, your date, and your location. And it will, again, it gives you a diagram. It gives you on the left side more information than you really need. Talk about overwhelm. But it does have all of that basic information up at the top. And you can, dive deeper. It'll tell you what your defined channels are. It'll tell you what your incarnation cross is. And these are all just next layers of understanding and nuancing. And I have my chart literally right next to me all the time, because I'll hear something, or I'll be doing work in someone else's chart, and something will come up about a certain gate, and it's it's like, oh, wait, do I have that defined or not defined? And then while I'm doing the research for this person's chart, I'm also reinforcing about my chart. But there's 64 gates, and so to really understand the shadows of each gate and the gifts of each gate, you would have to have some kind of magnificent brain to remember all of that on the fly. Vicky says thanks, she's on the online site. So yeah, and I'm not sure, I don't want to misspeak about what the other person was talking about on the other arrow. The arrows are about digestion. Like the top left arrow is about digestion, but it's not digestion as far as food. It's what we take in, how we digest, how we process. And so what I have found sometimes is when we really start trying to just get the answers to all the different pieces, we end up with nothing but information. And what I really am a proponent of, I guess, is it's integrating. And the best way to integrate your human design chart is to start with one piece at a time, not to try to understand all, 15 different categories, so to speak. And so the next level after, the energy and the strategy and the authority, and your not self being, is look at your energy centers and pick one at a time to really kind of just play with, either do some online research, or get someone to interpret your chart to give you the details, and just kind of say, today I'm really going to focus on the fact I have an open head. And then throughout the week, just kind of play it, because that's how you integrate. And it's not just reading it and saying, okay, now I know. And that's where the overwhelm, I think, kicks in for a lot of people, because then you're jumping all over. Well, wait, if this and this. And also the online information, there's a lot of good information out there, but given some of your energy centers, it's going to overwhelm you. So bringing it back in, or getting someone to do some interpretation for you, because information is just information until you know how to apply it to your life and to yourself, and to your circumstance. And just reading a definition on an open head, but not having someone tell you what it means, oh, but you've got a defined sacral, it's like disjointed information, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a very complex whole. And so if you're just taking a chunk of it, then you don't get that whole picture of
Right.
really how you can receive the information and then apply it to your life, because it's
Right.
like you're getting a generic statement that may
Yes.
apply to you, but it's not the full picture.
Exactly. And I think that's where sometimes it people get disenchanted with human design, or they don't understand it and they just go, oh, doesn't make sense. Or much like your example, it just wasn't the right time for you. It's
Right.
like, I mean, how many of us have read a book, 5 years ago, and it was like, really? Someone said this was a good book and I don't get it. And then 5 years later, you pick up the book and you open it and you go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's like,
I literally, when someone asked me about human design a couple of years ago, I was like, the one thing that I remember from that 90 minutes is that she told me I will go through periods of time where I have poor sleep. And that resonated so much with me, because I had, a really difficult child who, didn't sleep in her own bed until she was 4.
oh my
And so I
gosh.
was still recovering from
Yeah.
all of that sleep deprivation. I was like, oh yeah, that's totally me. And so that sank, but
Yeah.
that's such like the teeny tiniest thing, right? It's the tiniest thing.
Exactly.
But what I'll say is that I stopped worrying about it, right? So
Yeah.
if I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was like, oh, it's just that time. This is what I do. And I'll get up and I'll meditate, and I'll, or I will do something that is really self-care or for me. And so it gave me permission to not think it was a problem. So it was good, but I know that there's so much more.
Well, and I think that's really, on a very, very basic level, again, just knowing your energy type, and at best, it does just give you that permission. You don't think something's wrong with you. Projectors are usually so relieved to recognize that, oh my gosh, I don't have to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I see everybody in the, online space doing this. It's like, and I'm exhausted. It's like, stop, and sometimes just that little piece of permission is what opens up for the next shift. And a lot of women in your group, you're already attuned to the energies, you're already attuned to the connections we have with each other. This just gives you that better understanding of yourself, to be able to then nurture it and work with your clients in a different way. But yeah, permission is, you hear that sometimes. I don't want to go back and, look at my past, and I don't want to dig that up, and all these things. And the reality, my experience has always been, every time I've done that, it's actually given me more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that opportunity to just look at it and go, oh, well, that makes sense about why this pattern keeps repeating. It's like, do I want it anymore? It's like, no. And then you let it go, and then you recognize, oh, it comes up again. You go, oh, that's where that came from. And but we get so conditioned into, not wanting to dig up the past, not wanting to look at money beliefs when it comes to manifesting, not wanting to, and yet when you do that, you can see the thread, and it's so much easier to just move forward.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. If there's anybody else that has a final quick question, you can pop it in, and I will ask you my final question, and that is, any remaining pieces that you want to highlight, that you want to encourage people to do as they explore their own type? Any final words of wisdom for us?
I think my final words of wisdom, and by the way, if anyone's watching the replay and you want to pop a question in, I'm more than happy to come in and answer it after the fact too. So,
Thank you.
but I think my final piece is basically what we were just, discussing, is that it's very expansive, and don't just look at it as one-dimensional. And, you can search, anything online, and you're going to get conflicting information because everybody has a different interpretation or perspective or experience. So if you really, really want to understand your personal design, and how everything operates with each other, it's really find someone to be able to give you a reading. And on that note, I would also say, make sure they're recording the reading and possibly given a written report as well, because you cannot consume the results and the dialogue in one sitting. It is something that percolates and you reference. So those would be characteristics I would look for when you're looking to have a reading done.
Yeah.
It's just my,
Take your time with it.
yeah, and exactly, because it is, if you really want to embody it, you really want to understand it to begin going forward. So that, I think, is and if you do decide to find someone online that you want to follow and go through, just pick one source. If you like their style and you like the way they're presenting the information, then learn from that specific website. Don't try to bounce around, because it will confuse, and it's such a valuable gift. I hate to see people discard the information. So find someone that you vibe with and just follow what they're saying, and it will work for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I so appreciate your time. And for our viewers, I hope that this was valuable, giving you some highlights for human design, because I've been talking about it in my private sessions and in my group offerings, because I'm so excited about it. People are asking me, like, what the heck? Where do I find out more? Because this stuff seems pretty cool. And so you can certainly find out more through Theo, or if there's another person that you are drawn to, follow that pull as well.
If anyone has any other questions, let me know. I do private readings. I also have group programs, and all the work I do infuses human design on some level. So I'm just that passionate about it. So yeah, just let me know.
All right,
Thank you.
And Theo, please leave us your website in the comments, okay?
I will definitely do that. Thank you. Have an amazing day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.